So the pole was in me from here to here.
Man walked 16 kilometers. Oh, so this didn't happen in America. To avoid costly helicopter rescue. Oh, so this took place in America. When you think of 3 things America gets made fun of for the most, what are they? I know one of them has to be healthcare, and that's what this diabolical story is going to be about today. Because day in and day out, us Americans have to pay an arm and a leg and a goat sacrifice for health insurance. And I told you guys, I mean, it's not a joke. People try to avoid any possible situation that would get them to pay thousands, hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands of dollars in medical bills.
You want to know how bad healthcare is in America? Here's how bad it is. I get stitches, cut my finger the other day. Go into the hospital, get my stitches done. No big deal, whatever. I have to wait 2 weeks to get them taken out. In the meantime, I get billed for my visit. Before insurance, for 5 stitches, $3,800.
So these are things that are like, if you get into a car accident, for instance, and you have to go to the hospital, we will avoid the ambulance like the plague. If we get hurt at a party or anywhere for that matter, and someone else calls an ambulance, that's like a threat on our life because we can't afford to pay those medical bills. We can't pick up those medical care costs. It doesn't make any sense. So we will call an Uber and Uber to the hospital if we need to, or we'll Uber to a friend's house and get medically treated over there from a person with no experience, because at least it's cheaper than going into generational debt. And that's where we lead into today's video. It is absolutely sickening, and it's a very stark reminder that our healthcare system in the United States is severely broken. Now, if you guys haven't heard, there is a viral story going around that just broke a few days ago of a hiker in the United States that got impaled. And instead of seeking medical help, I mean, he was in a mountain somewhere in Montana, I believe, he walked for 10 miles to the hospital instead of getting airlifted to the hospital, because that would have costed way too much money. If you guys are new to the channel, welcome. If you guys are returning viewers, welcome back. Please do me a favor and like this video and subscribe if you haven't already to help us hit 1 million subscribers this year. Also, I've already heard from you guys a lot that our healthcare system is really bad, but what are some things that could be put in place that would make it better? Because a lot of us Americans are brainwashed into thinking that universal healthcare is a communist idea and it's actually horrible for you. And we should be very content with the system we currently have, because our medical care is phenomenal, but the cost to get medical care is absolutely abysmal. And then of course, I have a big question for you guys. How would you rank your own healthcare systems on a scale of 1 to 10? Do you feel like you're well taken care of? Do you think that there are some areas that could be improved? And if there are, what are those areas? This is the man right here. It says, man walks 16 kilometers to safety after impaling himself on mountain, wanting to avoid costly helicopter rescue. That is a brutal title. And it is insane when you realize what the details are. Like, imagine yourself hiking and you get injured. Obviously, you would want any type of medical treatment as fast as possible. But I could be wrong. What would you guys do if you were in an incident where you were hiking and you accidentally get injured? Would you want somebody to take you to the hospital? Would you want the proper medical services to take care of you as well? Or would you decide to go walk 1 million miles or kilometers, depending on where you're from, to get to the hospital and be taken care of? Because again, it was like a threat on his life. He was more worried about his medical bill than his actual health. And that is a very real struggle a lot of us Americans face. In a remarkable case from the United States, a man hiking on Montana's highest mountain managed to walk 16 kilometers, which is roughly 10 miles, in 6.5 hours to safety after a trekking pole pierced through his torso. David Cifaldi, who's 32, was close to the summit of the 12,803-foot granite peak on July 20th alongside 2 friends, when he slipped and fell on one of his 2 poles. Cifaldi, an emergency room nurse by profession, assessed the injury and decided that he could walk to safety instead of paying for an expensive helicopter rescue. 2 things stand out when I look at this that creates an even bigger problem. The first thing is he's an emergency room professional, so he's seen similar cases on a daily basis. And when he realized, man, this is going to be wildly costly, I should not get assistance getting to the hospital as fast as possible, because technically this isn't totally life-threatening. That's insane. That is absolutely insane. The second issue is making the decision to physically walk 10 miles with a pole in your body.
So the pole was in me from here to here.
All
remember rolling over and this kind of realization of like, something's not right here. And I was able to kind of quickly turn on my nurse brain and assess everything and do a little trauma assessment. And I pretty quickly realized this was just in the soft tissue, and was able to kind of talk to my friends a little bit and get everybody on the same page.
That doesn't sound right. If you had something stuck in you, right, and you're injured and you're trying to get to a hospital, wouldn't you want to get there as fast as possible? It's getting to a point where people have to do diabolical things to get medical treatment in the United States. Now, again, I think our medical care is good when you actually get the care, but the problem is the moolah, the money, the manya, okay? If you don't have the coin to be taken care of medically, you're fried. You will never be taken care of fully. And if you do get taken care of, they have an expectation for you to pay off those medical bills. And it's this back and forth of how can you make this payment and how far into generational debt are they going to put you in when they give you this treatment? It's genuinely terrifying. I've told you guys, I have my own personal story. I had to go to the hospital many years ago, and the hospital was about 2 minutes away from the location I was at. And the ambulance ride for a 2-minute car ride, a 2-minute ambulance ride, was between $2,000 to $4,000, roughly. It was about $3,000 on the upper end for a 2-minute ambulance ride. 2 minutes. Insane. Safaldi said he immediately knew after the fall that something was not right. The pole had reportedly speared him in the side below his left arm, pushing through his lower back, but narrowly missing the vital organs. Through my skin, I can feel the trekking pole. I knew it wasn't deep, and I knew I could take deep breaths. Safaldi was quoted to say by KBTQ, I'm pretty sure most of us know what trekking poles are, but if you don't know what trekking poles are, they are those hiking poles that people use and stuff. Now imagine one of those things being phased through your torso, you know, and you decide instead of getting medical help, you walk. Now, one of the worst things you can do if you get impaled by anything is take it out because you might not have a fun time and you might be playing with your lifeline a little bit. That's a tale as old as time. But this hit the airways, it hit the internet and everywhere else, every other possible media outlet, and people had a lot to say. And of course, one of the main talking points was how dog shit the American healthcare system is. I mean, if it forces people to do stuff like this, mind you, the individual that got injured who was hiking is a medical care professional. Isn't that crazy? That's the irony in all of this. He's a medical care professional that knows that if you receive medical care, you're going to have to pay an arm, a leg, and a goat sacrifice. And this is somebody that makes a lot of money. He's like, it's not worth the cost to be transported to the hospital and pay an erroneous amount of money. That is very telling and sad, right? That's sad. Like, we should be able to get treatment without having to worry about getting shafted on the back end. But I don't know. America has a lot of us Americans in a chokehold. It's got us comfortable with the idea that if we pay a ridiculous monthly fee for our health insurance, mediocre healthcare is fine. And we still have to foot a giant bill after paying a monthly subscription of hundreds of dollars. It's insane. That's America for you. And we're convinced that paying taxes that would allow us to have universal health care is a bad thing, even though we ourselves circumvent medical services, at least medical transportation services, to shave off some of the diabolical medical bill we're going to get to a hospital so we can be taken care of. And one of them was really sad because there was a video of this girl who was in a very crazy domestic situation, and she was trying to escape from her partner, and she had gotten injured, like really bad, all over her body. And the cops are like, we're going to take you to the hospital. We'll take care of you. And the first thing she said is, please don't. I don't want to pay those medical care costs. And I'm like, that is sad. That is sad. Why in the world would that be the first thing you think about? It should be your safety first. But I'm telling you, the medical bills are so expensive that that's out the window. I did see some people from Europe travel over to the United States, and they're like, oh, like the costs aren't that bad. And I'm like, excuse me if I have this incorrect, depending on what country they traveled from. I can't remember what country they traveled from. So I know some people in the comments are like, well, what country, James? I can't remember. But I think that in most countries, I'm not sure if it's all, but most countries throughout Europe, right, you can still have your health insurance assist you worldwide. So traveling to the United States as a tourist from a country within Europe, I mean, for the most part, you're taken care of on the medical side. So you don't have to worry about paying an arm, a leg, and a goat sacrifice. You can get top of the line medical care for whatever your insurance is covering. And that's awesome. But that's different for us Americans. Safaldi, an emergency room nurse by profession, assessed the injury and decided that he could walk to safety. That is crazy. That is crazy. And that's what I was saying. He's an emergency room professional. That's his job. And he knows it's too expensive for him to take something like that. As an emergency room nurse, the people that have to go scoop up the people to take care of, right? He knows that it's too expensive to deal with a situation like this. You're not going to get me. I see plenty of people get got in the United States. You're not about to get me. Damn it. Now insurance is going to tell me that the helicopter flight isn't medically necessary because at least one person hiked out themselves. Now that's the running gag with a lot of healthcare insurances in the United States. You'll pay thousands of dollars monthly, right? In subscription fees, whatever. So you can at least be covered. And then when you do get injured, and I'm not joking, that's what the whole Luigi Maggioni thing is about. You'll submit a healthcare claim and they're like, oh, sorry, but we've updated our terms of service. We actually don't cover the injury you just got. Sorry, we used to under our old policy, but our new policy dictates that we don't cover those. And that falls under our injuries that we don't cover policy, which is pretty much 99% of them. But we would love your money. So what happens is you're paying anywhere between, it can be probably as low as $200 a month, which is still insane, to thousands of dollars a month for healthcare, right? And then you actually get injured. And now you have this crazy diabolical hospital bill that you have to pay, but you're like, no, you're good because you've been paying for healthcare insurance. But then your insurance company is like, sorry, but we can't actually support that claim. We heard that you broke your arm. We actually cover every other medical emergency except broken arms. Not really an emergency for us. You could put it together yourself, but we'll take your next payment. It is very likely your insurance already didn't cover life flights from rural or remote areas. Apparently, a lot of policies don't or didn't used to. Source: friend doing volunteer EMT work in a remote area a few years back. So how do we fix this? Okay, so how do we fix this? Because it seems like it's just a ticking time bomb. Do you value living or barely living because you're paying all of your funds to a hospital incident that happened a few years back? American healthcare really turned walk it off into a survival strategy. Literally. Literally. You call the nurse hotline, you're like, ma'am, please, I need help. And the nurse is like, yes, what's going on? I'm impaled. What do I do? Oh, you're impaled. Oh, yeah, just walk. Walk. The nearest hospital's 50 kilometers away. Go ahead and just walk. Cost was a major factor in my mother's suffering and ultimately dying a few months ago. She had stomach pain and was getting worse with time when we moved, and she kept refusing to see a doctor because the costs of imaging alone were frightening to her. She kept putting it off until she could barely walk, and my brother and I basically forced her into the emergency room. And she tried to leave twice before being seen out of fear we'd be homeless, which I'm glad we fought her on because she turned out to have pancreatic cancer. It had already metastasized to multiple organs. If she received treatment sooner, there's a good chance it wouldn't have saved her, but she would have had assistance with her pain much sooner. And that breaks my heart. We're still receiving bills for her, and they're in the hundreds of thousands. I don't blame her for being terrified. I blame the system, and our doctor despises it. Was heartbroken too. That is a very clear case of what the main problem with the US healthcare system is. It's gotten to a point where, again, the bills are just so incredibly high that nobody wants to deal with those costs because they're very conscious of the burden they're putting on somebody else. If I become an old man and I need to go to the emergency room for anything, you got to think you're not just affecting yourself, you're affecting everybody around you. Your children might be like, dang, I got to take on hundreds of thousands of dollars in medical bills because my parent has to go to the hospital. Like, it's insane. And so when you look at all these other countries and stuff that have universal health care, and you have us Americans basically looking through the glass and we're like, dang, that looks amazing. And then you have the people at the tippy top of our government going like, that's not amazing, that's communism. ER nurse triages trip wound while hiking, judges wound as not critical. Gasp. admitted an impalement through the lat is no joke, but he wasn't bleeding out and evidently fully capable of walking 10 miles. I wonder if they made him wait at the ER because he wasn't critical. I saw the images of this incident, and the trekking pole was like it was like up here and came out of his lower back, just like I said in the article. But like it was crazy. It was literally crazy. And the crazy thing is, I bet you he gets to the emergency room and they're like, "Have a seat there, sir. We'll be with you in a second." And he sits there for like 4 hours. That's just how it goes. You know what I mean? "Oh, we'll get to you in a second. You got a whole like pole sticking out of your body." And they're like, "Yeah, you could wait." Somebody gets wheeled into the hospital, missing legs from an unfortunate incident. They're like, "You're good. Well, you could wait. We'll get to you when we get to you." I'm like, man. So I feel like, I mean, I'm not sure if we have a shortage of medical care professionals in the United States, but it seems that way, right? Like there's a lot of people getting injured, and it doesn't seem like we have enough medical care professionals, but we do have an uptick in people, going through some, unfortunate medical situations. We need as much assistance as possible, and we need the system to be affordable, right? Affordable. What's crazy to me on top of all of this, right? Because, you have to pay for arm, a leg, and a goat sacrifice for prescription medication and things like that once you're done being treated. When us Americans travel to Europe and we get injured, we get sick, we go to the hospital, and we leave with like a $15 to $20 hospital bill, it blows our mind. I mean, we shed tears of joy because we're like, how did we escape the jaws of life from a diabolical situation like that? You know what I mean? Like, why aren't we paying the equivalent of someone's college fund in the United States, like a whole college tuition 4 semesters worth, 4 years worth, my bad, for a minor injury that you got treated at the hospital? It's because a lot of these other countries have it figured out. Now, they might not have it perfect. There's definitely flaws in each system, but for the most part, people don't have to worry about going to the hospital. And what's crazy to me is, well, we're so hung up on making as much money as humanly possible that we actually want people to go to the hospital. People want to accrue all these medical bills and stuff. But when I say people, I mean the people at the tippy top that are running these medical companies. They want people to go in there. They want to put each of these patients on a payment plan so they can milk them for everything they're worth. And when they pass away, that debt rolls over to their children and they have to make the medical payments. Despite kilometers used, I immediately knew which country this was in. I clocked that as well. It's like 16 kilometers approximately. And I'm like, ooh, but this was in the United States. I mean, the article might not have been like an American article, but hey, you know what I'm saying? Like, even with the usage of kilometers in this story, everybody knew based on the context, this took place in the United States. Man walked 16 kilometers. Oh, so this didn't happen in America to avoid costly helicopter rescue. Oh, so this took place in America. My thoughts exactly. But what are yours? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you want to have a more thorough discussion on this, and maybe you have other stories and submissions that you want me to cover and review, feel free to catch me live on twitch.tv/JamesBrayGang.